Hey, Nikki.
Hey, Selena.
And hey, y'all. And welcome to Sweet Tea and TV. I'm like really smiling very big right now.
It's good because I'm sweating.
I was going to ask how you're feeling.
I felt so nervous yesterday and today leading up to this. Just like I was just telling you, just hoping that I can remember the buttons to push, the things to say, the things not to say.
Yeah.
Nervous.
Yeah. But you're feeling loose. You're feeling ready.
I'm feeling something.
You're feeling sweaty.
I'm feeling here, and I can see it's recording, and I can see my notes on the screen. So I just say, let's just do it and see what happens.
We're back in it.
Back in it.
Yeah, I'm not going to belabor the point. I'm just going to say that, we spent a long time, and by a long time, I mean 3 years, deciding whether or not we were going to cover season 6 and season 7 of Designing Women. And after much discussion, contemplation, consideration, prayer, we ultimately decided that we could not betray our inner completionists. So
couldn't.
That's right. We're here.
It's
we're doing
probably
it.
like, would you say 75% my fault?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say 80?
I wouldn't say fault. I would say
yes, you would.
You're the reason for the season 6 and 7.
We just needed to finish the drill.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I've made peace with it over the last 5 months.
Well, you're here.
I'm here. Well,
so.
I live here. So that's the way the cookie crumbles. That said, I do want to go ahead and just some upfront housekeeping for people to know who've been listening for the last several seasons. It is going to look a little different this time because we are going to do a shorter season that will happen over the next 7 weeks with Monday and Thursday releases as normal. But each week, instead of like taking it episode by episode, instead we're going to, and I want to give all the credit to Nikki because this was a great idea. We're going to focus on a different character and their trajectory across the controversial 6th season. This first episode, we're going to cover our general reactions to things, get a little in our feelings. Maybe not. I don't know. But Nikki, would you like to give us some color, some context to where we are in the Designing Women universe at the start of season 6?
It would be not only my pleasure, but my joy. So yes, we're season 6. Picture it, Selena, 1991. At the 63rd Academy Awards, Dances with Wolves wins 7 awards out of its 12 nominations.
This is not where I thought this was going.
This is what
Okay,
stick with it.
I love it.
So nearly 43 million viewers watched the Academy Awards this year. Serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested in 1991. The Super Nintendo debuted. The Cold War ended when Gorbachev stepped down and the Soviet Union dissolved. And then folks everywhere around the country were turning on their TV each week to catch the latest episodes of Roseanne, Home Improvement, Full House, Major Dad, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Unsolved Freaking Mysteries, all of the classics. And I've read this morning, actually, as I was finalizing my notes, Salute Your Shorts debuted this year. So just to kind of put you in context of time.
Wonderful.
So then all of that is not to mention the much anticipated season 6 of Designing Women. So I think as you and I have been revisiting every season kind of slowly and in great detail, one of the things that just keeps popping up is a really polarized reaction to both this season and episode 7, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's like I'm seeing more people in the Designing Women Facebook group lately who are saying season 6 wasn't the worst. I kind of don't mind it. But for the most part, I would say that most people don't care for season 6 and 7.
So much anger about it.
So much. So this season, we're going to see Charlene or Jean Smart for the very last time in episode 1. So I think we've talked about this a few times, especially like when we had ChatGPT sort of predict the future of her character. She's headed off to England because of Colonel Bill's military career. We also see what is at this point probably inevitable departure of Delta Burke or Suzanne. The show explains that she moves to Japan to live with her mother. So casual viewers and huge fans alike were really perched on the edges of their couches to see what was going to happen this season. So Pam Norris has by now taken over as executive producer from LBT, and the rest of the crew is sort of coming together to reimagine the show for season 6. This season brought the show its highest ratings, 30 million viewers tuned in for episode 1. So I just said the Academy Awards were 43 million. This was 30. That's kind of huge. For perspective, so again, that's 30 million viewers. If I did my math right, and I did average out the viewers for every episode of season 5, they had about 24 million viewers. And the final episode attracted about 21 million.
Those are crazy numbers. No one really gets today.
It's just not possible.
No, not as segmented as everything is.
I'm really glad you said that because I actually saw something this morning online about, it's called Kevin Can Go F Himself. It's a show that was very briefly on like Paramount Plus or something. Then it moved to Netflix and then it got canceled altogether because no one was watching it. And one of the comments was saying like, that's the problem with the way we watch TV now. You're almost like not force-fed these shows, so you don't have a chance to really even know it's a thing.
Before it's not a thing.
Exactly. And then you see it and everybody loves it. And you're like, well, dang, where were you guys 2 seasons ago when they needed the numbers?
That's right.
Anyway, that was a little bit of an aside. So like you mentioned, Selena, we're exploring a slightly different format this season. But because the first episode is such a heel turn from season 5, we thought it might make sense to take a little bit of time and talk about the episode in more depth. Before we talk about the episode a little, when I say in more depth, we're not breaking it down
Pop
100%.
quiz?
No pop quiz. I wouldn't do that to you. We're very disoriented with this recording session for a lot of reasons.
No, I'm ready.
We'll get into it in Extra Sugar this week, but everything's different for us. So, no, I was just going to ask, was there anything else that you wanted to cover about sort of the transition from season 5 to season 6? Anything about the cast, the characters that I didn't mention or left out that you really wanted to say?
I think you did a beautiful job.
Well, thank you. All right, so season 6, episode 1, The Big Desk, is a special hour-long episode, and it premiered on September 16th, 1991. It was written by Linda Bloodworth Thomason and directed by Harry Thomason. Designing Women Online summarizes it this way. When Julia and Suzanne's cousin Allison purchases Suzanne's shares in Sugar Bakers, everyone is under the impression she is to be a silent partner until the little, quote, Leona Helmsley shows up with plans to take control of Sugar Bakers. Meanwhile, Anthony, who is leasing Suzanne's house, gets a shock when Allison moves in and calls the police on him, and Charlene's baby sister, Carlene, starts working part-time for the firm doing office work. That's their summary. This one's mine.
Oh, okay.
In the form of a limerick.
What?
Okay. Suzanne moved far away to Japan. Julia sighed at the new plan. Mary Jo's stripper surprise. Carlene's filled Charlene's ties. Allison's takeover, fans ran. What do you think about that?
I love it. That's going on social media. So you can just go ahead and drop that in our,
drop it right
our
in there
planning documents because that's the kind of fun time gals we are.
Okay, can do. So we've talked a lot about the drama leaving season 5, and going into season 6. I think you covered a lot of this. I think it was your segment, behind the scenes drama for your mama, from episode 11 of season 5.
That sounds like something stupid, I would say.
Nope. Not stupid. But it does sound like you.
Trying to do nicer self-talk. Yes, excuse me.
Yes. And
that does sound like me.
If you won't, I will. It's clever. And I think that's why it sounds like you. Because I'm always like, what do I title this? So just to put the finest point, though, on the drama, I was, again, finalizing my notes, and I did one last-ditch effort to look for any news articles from around the time of this episode premiere, and so I went to my good old public library. So I can't share the link to the article because this was a digital reproduction because it was 1991, which is like 100 years ago. But it was a Toronto Star article from August 8th, 1991, a day before my 6th birthday.
Yes. Big time.
The article was about the filming of the first episode of season 6. So the article was titled, Producer Denies Design Was to Attack Women Star. In case that gives you like any sense for what it was about. Basically, reporters who attended the filming of the premiere reported that they thought LBT was trying to, quote, pour salt into Delta Burke's wounds with some of the searing lines that she'd worked into the script for this episode. LBT herself denied the claims, saying that she wasn't, quote, dumb enough to be vindictive. But after seeing some of the cast visibly upset, including Meshach Taylor, who she said was in tears, she decided to give the script a second look.
Oh.
So again, I won't be able to link to the article, but if you just search Toronto Star 1991.
You've been out there doing the Lord's work.
I just needed to know. I needed to know if it was like, it just, there's something different about reading something from that time versus people's recollection of the time. And it really does sound like the drama was high. And I think that helps. I mean, this is like PR lesson number one. Like, if you're all interested to see how a controversial storyline is going to play out, you're all going to tune in to that first episode of a new season. Like, what is this going to be like? Mm-hmm. So I think that all helped sort of beef up and ratchet up the attention into it. So I wanted to mention also, this is sort of an aside, I wanted to mention we got a new intro this season to the show. So we get Ray Charles playing and the women sitting in various positions on the piano. I wanted to ask Selena how you would have felt recording that intro. Like, and in what direction do you think they were giving the stars? Like, now, Selena, I want you to gaze into the distance and imagine the stars twinkling. Or, like
Georgia is on your mind.
Right. Yeah. Dixie, you've just seen a long lost lover. Now lower your chin and come hither.
I feel like Dixie didn't need any.
That's just her. Oh, because you told us she does the laying across the piano at her parties.
And that's what I like. I like to think I would have tried to be doing a split across the piano.
Oh, wow. That's bold.
I can't do a split.
Okay.
So I'd be just short of one, and I would look like I was like in some sort of labor, Doesn't have to be child labor.
Which would have attracted 40 million viewers in and of itself.
Yeah. Why? What do you think you would have done?
I feel like I would have been so awkward. So you were just standing here trying to take a picture of me sitting at this like very elaborate podcast setup that I have today. And I don't know if you saw, but behind those green blue eyes is fear. It's just, what do I look like right now in this photo? So.
Yeah. I think mine is always like someone caught like in like a trap,
Yeah, right. Like, and just like, I need to stop, but like, is my chin too high or too low? And I just was watching them in their various faces that they're making. And like, there's some sort of nuzzling action going on at one point, and then like a down and a smile. And Carlene, we want you to look naive. Charles. Ah, yes.
Now I feel like I've missed the boat. I'll have to go back.
I'm not sure there was really a boat, Selena. I was just curious. I just watched it and was like, okay.
I was actually thinking how if I was Delta Burke and Jean Smart, I'd be like, you a-holes. You bring Ray Charles in here on the 6th season when we're not here anymore. You pull out all the stops.
Yep.
Now George is on our mind. So I don't know.
And this is how this show works for me and this podcast works for me, is that then it sent me down a rabbit hole of how old was Ray Charles when they were filming this, and like how much longer did we have him and how long had he been a legend. And then I was like, you know what, Nikki, that's not what this is about. It's not about Ray Charles.
You better be glad you didn't say that. I'd be like, you have a sidebar.
I'm careful what I say, Selena.
I know you are.
So I think those were the high points I wanted to mention about this episode. Was there more detail that you wanted to talk about with this particular first episode? Are you ready to jump into our general reactions for this season?
Let's jump on in.
All right. So we're calling this whole episode of the podcast The Replacements, which is a delightful suggestion, Selena. I really like that one.
Oh, well, thank you. It felt fair.
Yes.
Well, do you feel comfortable starting us off with your first overall reaction to the season?
Yes, I will say I have sort of I would put these in 3 categories to describe my general reactions. The familiar feeling, shenanigans over substance, and Bernice's shining moment is how I would summarize this season.
Oh, okay.
So I think for the familiar feeling, for me, when I think about designing women, I think it's actually maybe this season I'm thinking about. And this must have been where Lifetime started picking it up. So again, we've talked a lot about how I know my mom watched the show, and I know that she really loves designing women. I think I only sat down to watch it when it was on Lifetime. So like, as I was watching this season, I was thinking, I've actually seen some of these episodes and I kind of remember some of them. I definitely remember Allison. I was pleasantly surprised by Suzanne, I think, in prior episodes or prior seasons, because I'm not sure I really remembered a lot of her, like Bernice's Black Man song. That plays on loop in my head sometimes because I just can remember that from Lifetime. So,
right.
yeah. So for the first time, I think in a slightly different way, this feels like something I've seen before.
Okay. Well, you ready for my controversial
Yes, please.
take? I don't think it's as bad as everyone is making it out to be. With that said, I will say that it was a tough start, especially on the heels of 2 really strong seasons. If y'all don't understand, not a rolling hill as in HEEL. Just feel my southernness coming in there. As a viewer, you kind of have to be willing to wait until the cast finds its footing. I mean, we had and that's why I think it was like Groundhog Day, because I felt like we did that with the first cast, and then here we were doing it again. So I think that's challenging in a week to week versus a binge situation.
Yes.
If I'm just,
I see what you mean.
cracking on through them, it's fine.
Yeah.
If I'm having to wait a week to be disappointed again, you might be out by like the second or third episode. So, but because the original cast was so comfortable with one another, it almost made watching this in the beginning feel uncomfortable. I could feel and see the seams a bit. I could feel that awkwardness. I like the season better my second time through. That's when the fun starts, guys, when you start watching it multiple times. But which I think makes for a great binge watching and rewatching. So that was my first thought.
I think that I will get into some of that when we get to rating the season overall, but 100% agree with that. I do not think this season was bad at all. And so my second reaction was shenanigans over substance. And so some of this might be at play for me personally, which is that it was
They're
really
in your realm.
And we're like right in my wheelhouse of just silly. Like it was heavy on shenanigans. It was really playful and less serious, lighter at times, like a little whimsical, but not like in a goofy way, just in a like, it's not everything's quite so serious all the time. And there weren't as many like super heavy storylines, though there certainly were some. But it just felt very shenanigansy. And
do you think this is the Pam Norris effect?
I think it might be. So one of the things I had read in reviews of this season was like it starts to fall apart, like it loses its footing toward the end. I don't know what to make of a comment like that, because this show is so different from the way I'm used to watching TV, which is like a Friday Night Lights sort of situation where you have these through lines that go and you explore those and you pull back from them and then you come back to them. We've talked about this before. Like Designing Women has a couple through lines, but for the most part, it's not a consistent.
It's an old school sitcom.
Exactly. And so
tune in
it's
any time.
so hard for me for someone to have that reaction to something like this. And this was an old review. This was like a 1990s review. It wasn't like a today review. So I struggle with that a little bit.
We're the ones reviewing now.
Right. And I'm just like, it wasn't any less directional than any other season, in my opinion. So shenanigans over substance, loved it. Bring more of that for me.
Okay, so I agree. And I'm going to say that my second reaction is Allison.
Okay.
That's it. That's it. And number 3 is, so I don't want to say too much here because we'll have an entire episode dedicated to her character, but it was hard to not really scrutinize her performance given to this day the visceral reaction to her among fans.
Yeah.
My read is that the show was going for some kind of foil for the other ladies, and perhaps especially Anthony, a pot stirrer, if you will, which is what Suzanne was. But with Allison, I think they overshot. I think what she needed was what I'm going to call the Michael Scott treatment.
Oh, okay.
So if you're not familiar with the lore, when The Office was adapted from British to American TV, they changed the boss. This was a Greg Daniels decision. They changed the boss from a one-dimensional a-hole and a buffoon to a buffoon with some kindness and depth.
Right.
You know? And it obviously is one of our most enduring, most loved shows. I mean, they're bringing it back. It might be back right now, actually. And,
I don't know.
And so, I mean, it obviously worked. And in this case, we see what happens when you don't make the right adjustments. Like, you couldn't just drop people into those same roles and keep it moving. So they made her just too mean and too obnoxious, especially in those first episodes. Suzanne was also mean sometimes. Don't know if y'all caught on to that or not, but they built out a more complex character there. Yeah. And then there's just the Delta Burke factor. Yeah. She is so charming that she can get away with what other people can't. I mean, I can't. So, like, I mean, there's like 3 people on the planet that can do that. And she just has a certain something. And so it feels like it was a really unfair position. And maybe, who knows? I don't know what the direction looked like in these episodes. Some of it, I think, was acting choices. It just didn't land.
Yeah.
And that's my second reaction.
Yeah. And I'm very much looking forward to that Allison episode because she did not offend me. Offend's not quite the right word. She didn't really register with me in such a like visceral way. Yeah, like she didn't come on screen and I hated her. Like I think she's funny. I do think they overshot. So I'm really looking forward to talking about that with you when we get there. My last reaction was Bernice's shining moment. So you had Allison. I had like this is just the Bernice season. Like this I feel like is the season again, and maybe it's because I'm having this like I've tapped into some long ago memory of like, these were the episodes I watched. But this is where we get all of the major Bernice things that I'm used to, like her song, her like silly remarks. She's in so many more episodes this season. And we just really got
I still wanted
a
more.
lot of that. You wanted more?
Yeah.
For sure.
There were a couple where I was like, she needs to be here. And I think it was, for me, her inclusion is in knowing that her number of episodes was really going to ramp up this season.
Yeah.
That was what brought me in.
Yeah.
So
I think she was a redeeming factor for me. And maybe that's why Allison wasn't so abrasive for me or something. Maybe there was like a balance of the universe or something. I don't know. I just thought I loved having Bernice there. So that was my other major observation this season.
Okay. Well, my final one is that we notably get a cliffhanger at the end of the season. It's the first time that's happened to my recollection. I think one of the things we usually talk about every season is there's no cliffhanger. There's no reason to come back. And and that's also like an old school TV thing. So you don't have to have one.
Right.
But like there's just no skin in the game. And, it's the first time that I was like, I got to get to this next season. I got to find out what happens with Anthony and New Vanessa.
Right.
And then, I actually skipped forward and I watched 2 minutes of the season. And then then I felt like I was cheating.
Oh, well, yeah, I would say you
was. And so
I would say you would have been better to not tell me that.
I have to be honest.
You'll pay for it later.
Fine. I always do. It really doesn't matter what it is. I always do. But yeah, so that was mine.
Okay. So the next little bit of the episode, we want to talk about some season superlatives. So first up, we had best and worst episode overall. Do you want to kick us off maybe with the best episode? Start with the good, or would you rather start with the bad?
We start with the good.
Okay, start with the good.
So I feel like I'm back to my old shenanigans, my personal shenanigans, which is like I have 2.
I have
2 best.
I have an honorable mention.
Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. So
we're back to our old shenanigans.
Yeah.
We are who we are.
But here's why. Like, I think 1 is the best because it's the most important.
Okay.
And I think 1 is the best because I thought it was the funniest episode for me.
And I think I flip-flopped.
Oh, wonderful.
So this will be interesting.
Oh, how exciting for us.
And a few of our friends who listen online.
They'll love it. So episode 8, The Strange Case of Clarence and Anita, I think was the most important episode of the entire season. I think it was very brave, especially in 91, to write an episode about something so divisive and take a stand. I cried. That's my job. It's the only place I cry is at Designing Women. So I don't know if that's what they're going for, but every season I feel like I come in the beginning, I'm like, I cried through like 6 of the episodes. Funniest for me was episode 16, Carlene's Apartment.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like once a season, there's one episode where everyone really shines. Like they just did the right thing. They let everybody cook.
The alchemy is all perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this was it for me.
I hear that. That makes a lot of sense. I think for me, I felt like this was a pretty even season. And I think this is what I was getting at earlier. Like, I didn't see a fizzle out at a point. There were certainly some episodes maybe in prior seasons I maybe would have thought is more a filler, but for the most part, like it was fine. And maybe the not having to watch every episode in exhaustive detail helps.
Excuse me, with all due respect, it's a 90s sitcom. They're all filler episodes.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a good time, Sally.
Just supposed to be funsies.
Maybe not a good time, Sally.
Yeah, I don't know. I was going to let you just have that one.
Yeah.
So the best episode and I went with what was for me personally. So it's not quite the same as funniest, but I enjoy being a girl. was the episode, and I didn't write the episode number down. It was one of the later ones. This one hits really close to me, like close to home for me at this phase in my life.
Why?
So yeah, and I think we'll get there when we get to the Carlene episode. We're going to talk about the Girl Scout tie because I feel strongly there. But it's also very Barbie-esque. We're in like a post-Barbie movie world. Have you still not seen Barbie?
I've seen it.
You've seen it. Okay. So we're sort of in this post-Barbie moment where we're kind of pushing against this idea that to like pink and to be girly is like the worst thing a woman can do because it's, you got to fight the patriarchy, and the only way to fight fire is with fire. You know what I mean?
Right. But
and
you can fight the patriarchy in pink.
Exactly. And so I think on many fronts, that was hitting a lot of notes for me. So the bit at the end between Mary Jo and Julia is just what you just said, which is, I mean, personally, I still like a twirly dress every now and then myself. It's just, I don't want to twirl just because I'm a girl and that's what I'm supposed to do. I want the choice to twirl and the right not to. And when she said that line, I was like, that's it. That's all we've been talking about this whole time. So I just thought that was really beautiful. And then Mary Jo had her speech about like one of her favorite childhood memories being the day she became a brownie, and just how as a Girl Scout troop leader, that hit home for me. I thought that was really sweet. And Allison finally said something profound where she said, you see, this is where I think you feminists are so screwed up. Instead of trying to be as good as men, you should try to be as good as women. And they were like, you're right, Allison.
It was great.
It was great. So then my honorable mention is a scene from a mall. So for me, this was the episode where I had some tear-jerky moments. Or moments of things like the more things change, the more they stay the same. So we'll definitely talk about this more in our Anthony episode. But when he talked about all the Anthonys he's expected to be, oh my gosh.
Chills.
I got like,
He's so good.
He'd be so good. So like we all have multitudes and we all have these roles that we're expected to play.
And we all code switch.
But he did such a beautiful job of helping you see the unique experience of a Black man and doing it through a character that we love and that we just want life to be good for. It was really beautiful.
I also want to say I feel like that's a nice counterbalance in a way to the Clarence and Anita episode.
Yeah.
So
what about worst?
yeah. I'm like,
Do we have the same?
I'm just glad that like it wasn't where a worst was a best or something.
Right, that would have been awkward. But we've been there
or
before.
season 1 through 3, I think. So episode 12, Real Scary Men, it's dead in the middle of the season. It always is for me. I'm sure it might have resonated more at the time, but in 2024, this like, again, it's like one of these like gender battles. It just didn't land for me personally.
That was my honorable mention, and you just said exactly what it was. Like, it felt dated in a way some of the other episodes this season haven't.
Yeah, it felt like it diminished issues that women and men face, and I don't think that is what they were aiming to do. And again, so 1991, great. 2024. So
we also had like 3 camping episodes this season. So like on a superficial level, like I want excursions and I want field trips in the show, but like it was the same thing over and over again.
Oh God, I didn't even think about that. That's
so
funny.
many.
Yeah.
So many.
So funny.
Yeah, I hear you.
How about you?
So that was my honorable mention. My number 1, A Little Night Music. That episode was so hard, cringe-inducing for me.
So hard.
So this is the episode where Julia thinks she has to get a hysterectomy. And so she's going through something that I imagine is a very, and will be for you and I in like 30 or 40 years, like an experience we really resonate
30
with.
30 or 40 years, huh? Okay.
Yeah. It'll really resonate with us. But like, bringing in the guest star who we're going to talk about guest stars in a minute, but bringing in someone I think we're supposed to know, but he just didn't hit the mark for me. Anyway, it was a cringy episode is what I'll say. And so for me, that is one when I get, so I've rewatched, I think I'm on my third rewatch of the season. And that's one that I can't watch.
That's fair. I think it's that thing again. Every time we hit a romantic episode, I think you and I really struggle, which might say more about us. But I also just want to say that, like, can we get a man to look at the men's lines?
Yes.
Because I'm not saying that romantic things haven't been said to me. Okay? I'm not saying that doesn't exist in the world. They've been said. They've been said. What I'm saying is, it's something that's always just a little off. It's like the way maybe like a woman thinks that she wants to be talked to versus like what a dude would actually say.
And it's wacky because I'm super sentimental. Like I am super gushy and like I just love all that sort of stuff.
When he says like you're going to be trouble, aren't you, or
Yes.
something, I'm just like I can't. I don't think she is, for starters, but also.
I wish they would have just given this a couple more years, watched The Notebook, and talked to her the way Noah talked to Allie. He said very romantic things, but he didn't lose any of his anything.
It's just
so romantic.
Yeah, I don't know. Stuff. We'll have a whole episode to talk about.
Worst episode of the season.
I don't disagree. That was tough for sure.
So let's go to guest stars because we just referenced that. We're going to do best and worst here. So do you want to lead us off with your how many bests do you have?
I have one.
Just the one.
But I think you're going to call me on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't think I can because that would be glass houses and whatnot.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
My pick is Ray Charles.
Okay. Tell me more.
I don't know that it's a fair pick, but if you think about it and you add together all the times that you have to watch it over and over again, technically he's
true.
on there more than anyone else.
It's true.
And it's Ray Charles.
It's Ray Charles.
Leaving Georgia on my mind about a show that takes place supposedly in Georgia. So like I gotta support that.
Okay.
So that's my pick.
Okay. I have two because I thought you might call me on my first one. Because
Okay.
it feels cheap to say Jean Smart because she
wow.
was in the first episode.
I'll allow it.
And I just feel such a kinship to the character of Charlene that like so sad to lose her. Carlene does not fill that void. And so when I saw her, I was like putting on a warm blanket and then she's just gone and you feel like you had something ripped away from you or something. So it's kind of my cheap answer. My less cheap answer is Jackie Harry. Yeah, she's Jackie A. Harry. She's a fantastic. I loved her so much in my childhood. I'm like Ladybugs, Sister and Sister. Like she's just there for me. And I think she's such a delightful person that when I saw her, I was like, oh, here we are. It's time. She may not be the most wonderful character, and time will tell, I think, when we get our cliffhanger. I have not pre-watched
like,
season
will
8,
it?
but maybe it won't. I don't know. We'll see. Did they at least resolve the storyline?
I actually don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it's like, again, like I haven't seen anything from season 7 in years.
Yeah.
So, and I think season 7 is the one I've seen the least. So
Okay.
I don't really, I just know he ends up with someone different.
He ends up with someone
Yeah.
different. I do know that part.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho, so she was probably the actual best for me. What about worst?
I have the return of Ian Patrick Williams from season 3's The Women of Atlanta. So he's the one who in episode 11 is basically reprising a slightly different version of his last character, douchey LA guy, but this time he is playing douchey local celebrity guy. He's doing the job.
Yeah.
He's obviously following directions.
Yeah.
For me, oh Chuck, I can't hear it again.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to.
Funny episode. I like the episode, but he's just like a lot for me.
I think you just blew my mind because I'm not sure I put together that was the same guy.
Oh, well, I'm here for that.
I really think that episode, the Ochuck episode, it cracked me up.
Oh, it was a
several
great
times.
episode. It's
Yeah.
one of I mean, it's
Chuck.
it felt too easy to pick that one as the
Yeah.
best episode of the
Yeah.
season, but it because that is like a fan favorite,
Okay.
I think. But like, despite the season 6 of it all, but yeah, he's just like tough. He's just as swarmy as you need.
Made me laugh. So my worst is Gary Morris, who played.
You just really don't like him, huh?
And it's, again, direction. Who knows what they told him, but he was the doctor in A Little Night Music. He was in one of those situations where I saw him and thought this is supposed to be someone. So that was before we were. So
Yeah, he looks like he just stepped off of A Star Is Born.
Yes.
No
and
doctor has that hair.
No. And then she says
Come for me.
something. You look like you should be a rock star. She
Yeah.
says something that felt very something.
Mm-hmm.
So short version, he was a country singer, or is, I think, a country singer and stage actor. He performed one of the earliest versions of Wind Beneath My Wings. Did you know that?
After I looked him up, yeah.
So, of course, his episode would be dethroned in 1989 by Bette Midler's version. So it's like There's no way we could have known that.
Right.
But they just don't do men right on this show. Like, he should have come across romantic. He should have had a little riz, as the kids say. But instead, he made me very uncomfortable.
I've never felt
very
older.
Cringy.
Go on.
There's going to be a kid that listens to this episode strictly because I said the word riz. They're going to be like, she's cool. She must be like 20 years old.
How much dead air do you think we can have?
I was going to say, how long are we going to stare at each other? Other than best and worst, do you want to talk about I know you have an exhaustive list of guest characters. And I didn't even notice there were that many until you said.
Yeah, I felt like it was worth at least like touching on some of the people. You've already covered 2 on my list, so great, because I don't want to, like, we don't have to live in it, but I just figured we could go through them.
Sure.
And you stop me and tell me if you want to share anything about your, like, I really like this. This worked for me. It didn't. You can also have no feelings. You know what?
Sounds good.
This is a safe space, kind of. So
I'll have feelings.
Did it feel like for you, because it did for me, that like this is the first season where they were inching up on stunt casting?
Once I looked up that word, yes.
So Marla Maples.
Yeah.
I mean, her appearance followed by Julia's call to Donald Trump is simultaneously the biggest 1991 timestamp and somehow also the most current reference.
Yes. What is that about? The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, that's great. Capture it that way. Thank you for cutting me off.
And I wonder, like, if the stunt casting, because I hadn't quite put that together until... so Selena had mentioned to me, like, in a note that she had seen a lot of guest stars, and I was like, what is she talking about? And so then I really went back through it with a fine tooth comb. I was like, holy crap, there were a lot of people here.
Was that before or after I sent you the list?
It was around the same time.
It's not really important.
Not really important. But I do wonder if that was either one of 2 things, or maybe both can be true. One, an attempt at getting more attention to the show,
right,
because they were having such a tough time bringing on like the longtime fans. Again, the ratings just don't bear it out. Like, people, I think, consistently watched throughout the season.
Well, and Marla was right at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. So 1, maybe that is it. Or 2, is it that the show finally got so much cachet that they could call in some of these favors and get some of these people to come?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. At the end of the series, maybe we should talk about the best guest star ever. I think we know who it is, but...
Ever this season?
Whole series.
Oh, in the whole series. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that answer.
Everyone knows that answer.
Did you know Marla Maples is from near Dalton, Georgia? Cohutta?
She's related to someone I used to live with and go to school with and was friends with.
Cool. I don't know very much about Marla Maples, or I didn't before I looked it up.
Well, and I don't know how closely related they were, but she definitely mentioned that to me, that they were like maybe like third cousins or something, second or third cousins.
So there's also like that Southern tie too, which I think is relevant here.
Yeah. So, and I think it's interesting because that's just such a different time. And I think now we don't either weren't born, or like whatever, the Donald Trump, like Ivanka pulled through the media thing.
Drama.
Like, like all of that and the Marla Maples of it. Like, I think it's almost hard for us to comprehend. And for whatever reason, while I do remember seeing like Delta Burke on the tabloids, for instance, at the grocery store, I don't really remember the Trump stuff. So I don't know, but
there's something to be said about that.
Yeah. So we get not only a couple of that guys, but also a couple of Georgia boys. So I wanted to call out Ray McKinnon as Dwayne Dauber. That is a name that lives rent free in my head, by the way.
Dwayne Dauber?
I was like, when are we getting the Dwayne Dauber?
Dwayne Noah.
You know? Also just automatically brings out the Southern in me.
I misspelled it the first couple of times I wrote it because I was thinking it was DAU, which is like 4 steps
French?
too complicated. It's DOBB, and I don't know why I went complicated.
Yeah, but there's also Blake Clark as Mary Jo's brother Skip.
But Ray was born in Adel, Georgia.
Adel,
but
excuse me, Adel.
He married a gal from Missouri.
Look at you stepping right in with the pronunciation. Oh, it's just so fast.
Sometimes it's complicated.
Yeah, so he's from Adel. So that is where one of my very best friends in the world is from.
Adel.
I've been there.
Does she know Ray McKinnon?
I guess I could
Are they related?
Maybe.
had to look his name again.
It's a very small town.
Yeah.
That was a very big deal when they got a Taco Bell years ago, just so you know.
As it should be.
Yeah. But if you look at either one of those guys, Blake Clark or Ray McKinnon, they're both like, you've seen them in everything under the sun. You just may not know it. When I think of Blake Clark, he appears in like a lot of Adam Sandler movies.
Yes. And Boy Meets World.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to call them out too is because, given this is a Southern podcast, it feels worth noting that they both struck me as Southern men I have known.
Yes.
So right down to the Dwayne of it, if you will.
Yes.
So I just
And
felt the same.
Blake is from Macon, Georgia.
That's right.
There's just like a lot of Georgia happening here too.
Love it. It's on somebody's mind. Anything else you want to say about them? Because I don't want to skip your thoughts.
About those two guys specifically? No.
I've got MC Gainey returning as T. Tommy Reed.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's a fun character.
He is.
I liked his little romance with Allison.
I really want to
me.
not like him because it really sounds like you put Anthony through it, but he's just a funny guy.
I think they want you to like him, so it's
Yeah.
fine. I also like that they poked at the fact that he played one of the hillbillies in season 4's Nightmare from Hee Haw. Because if you're going to do it, like, go ahead and break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Like, don't, like, I want the wink. Otherwise, like, then it starts to feel like a stage play.
Yeah.
You already mentioned Jackie Harry, so I won't say much except to say I also, the sister in me sees the sister in you as a fellow elder millennial, a grand millennial, if you will. And then you mentioned Gary Morris already as well. So, and that, I don't know. This was him trying to break into acting. He did do a stint on Broadway.
Yeah.
I could see him as a stage actor, actually. So that's it for me.
I wanted to mention episode 4 when Allison goes to get married to Barry Binsford.
Yeah.
That was Jerry Lacey, who is Julia Duffy's husband in real life.
Oh, is it really?
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Hmm.
They called in a favor on that one. I didn't see a lot of married person chemistry, but I don't think I was watching that episode with that in mind.
Don't they say that if you... Actually, I think what they say is like if co-stars are sleeping together, they don't have any chemistry. And if they're not sleeping together, they have a lot of chemistry. And so sometimes people will literally not sleep together to
Okay.
like cause that fire
Okay.
between each other.
Yeah, they there wasn't a lot of fire either though. They seemed like strangers.
That's because they were doing it like rabbits offset.
There you go.
That's what you were waiting for,
There
right?
you go. That's what I really wanted to hear you say.
That's what you came here for. We know it. I know it.
So now we have, is that good on guest stars?
It is.
You want to move on to funniest moments of the season?
Why not? It's next in the document.
Fair point.
Just open those curtains
I
up.
was going to
You know
say
what I'm saying?
break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
You want to kick us off with one of your funniest moments? Let me see how many I have. 1, 2. I have 3.
Okay, so I think that we'll wind up talking about some or even all of these again in the character specific episodes.
sure.
You know, y'all let's just take down that curtain rod completely, shall we? And then Nikki and I can just run around here and hit each other with it. We've already talked about the fact that we think this is going to wind up like we're going to broach episodes. So you get to hear about it twice. Congratulations. But Bernice's sexual escapade runner over the course of the season was amazing. She blurts out randomly or like remembers off the cuff like the people that she has or thinks that she's had sex with. And some are quite famous. And it got me every single time.
It just comes out of nowhere and surprises you.
Yeah. She's like, oh, Wilt Chamberlain. Yeah. I'm like,
Is that the one where she's like, I think?
I think it is. There's like a John Denver reference. I'm like, sure, awesome. Good for you, Bernice. Absolutely. Do you want me to go through all of mine?
Well, let me tack onto that one because everything about her in the drive-in movie episode 10, those were some of the funniest moments for me. She says, like, somebody asks her, what are those knee pads for? She says, if you must know, it gives an illusion of bigger knees. That's the last of my beauty secrets I'm revealing. Just so perfectly random.
Yeah.
What?
How do you even come up with that?
And then she says, would you like one of these? And I think it's Anthony who says, I don't know. What is it? An old family tradition. Somehow it just wasn't a trip to the drive-in without vodka stingers. What? And then when she has her whole choking where she's trying to save them, and later she says, "I bailed your butts out of a sling with that phony dud emergency." Just like everything about her in that episode was funny.
She's so good. My next one was episode 7, Last Tango in Atlanta. Anthony and T. Tommy Reed's, is his last name Reed? Did I just make that up?
T. Tommy Reed.
Okay. All right.
It's weird how that happens, right? Like it's buried in your head, and then when you say it,
that it just fell out.
And then wait, somebody's gonna be like, "It's not Reed, it's
exactly.
Breed."
And they're like, it sounded like you spelled it, even though you only said it like EID, and it's 2 E's. So, all right. Anyway, so their tango was pitch perfect physical comedy, and only made better with like the prison backdrop and perhaps our most infamous designing women character. So that just really worked for me.
Yeah. I had an Anthony one too. So I had episode 11, which was the episode with the TV news anchor. But when Anthony played Nigel Betancourt, special envoy of the Bermudan Embassy in America, and God bless Charlene as the deputy ambassadorette, it was just peak shenanigans sort of stuff. Like when the news anchor says, "I looked in the bag, my stuff's in it." And he's like, "Are you completely insane? I specifically asked you not to do that." Like there was so much intentional overacting happening in that little bit that every time I watch it, I laugh. And there have been multiple occasions.
I just love him.
He's so good.
It's true. My last one is when Allison, Anthony, and Carlene get locked in the storeroom. This is in episode 14, Driving My Mama Back Home. So Carlene breaks out her guitar and is making up terrible songs, exactly what you want if you're locked in a small space. Allison gets stuck in the heating duct and then later sneaks food. Like a little a-hole. And then when they finally get out and attack those donuts, it's just done so well. And then like snatch the whole box and go back in the room, and they forgot to do the inventory.
When they find out they didn't do the one thing they were locked in there to do.
Which is what I call life. It was just like really the best part of the episode.
Yeah,
honestly.
It really was. It was. I also have sort of a Carlene adjacent situation because she was involved in that shenanigan. It was Mary Jo and Carlene's goofy team up in episode 4, Dwayne's World. And I hope I'm labeling these episodes right. I have episode numbering. Anyway, Dwayne's World.
Somebody will let you know.
It's true. And it'll probably be you, actually.
It might be. I'm obnoxious like that.
They have a very different dynamic than Mary Jo and Charlene. So Mary Jo and Charlene were like besties who were living through similar things at the same time. But like Mary Jo said in episode, in the Dwayne's World episode, Carlene reminds her of herself from a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So it was less bestie and more mentor. Mm-hmm. And so in that Dwayne's World episode, it was good to see her on a wacky escapade with a sidekick, but in a slightly different color. Mm-hmm. And I just really appreciated their interactions and then also just the whole thing around it. What about the cringiest, or thank you for this?
Yeah, sorry, that was tough.
So Selena gave us a little bit of an escape route, which is, it could also be most obnoxious moments, because I was really struggling with cringy, which is very surprising.
It really is.
I mean, I had that whole one episode that was cringy, but really surprised me. There wasn't much more that I watched and was like, ooh.
Right. It didn't really rise to that level in most cases.
No.
My first one, I'm calling an obnoxious moment, and this is like maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going to put Charlene's disappearance here.
Okay.
Did I miss where they said she moved to England? Is this a cut line? They got zapped, thank you Hulu? Or like what happened? Because one second she's visiting the Queen and she never returns, and no one ever says, like, to my recollection, that she's not coming back.
Oh, because
we just know that.
There was a whole thing about someone using her house while they're gone. Oh, I'm going to have to rewatch episode. I thought it was said. Maybe I just presumed it.
Someone will tell us, but like I think it's a cut.
Yeah.
I think that might be what. Are you looking at cuts this
season? I am. There are 3 episodes missing, 3 or 4 episodes that they just don't have toward the end of the season. Yeah. So yeah, I have been looking at cut lines. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
And it's like,
that would be obnoxious.
It's obnoxious.
Let me see. I have one kind of in that vein. This is cringy. I don't know, but it feels It's an old cringe. So in Pain Comes Home.
Oh, there's pictures?
In Pain. No. This is me. I'm looking at my notes on my phone because my laptop's too far away. In Pain Comes Home, there were some super uncomfy moments between Pain and Julia, like yet again. Because you remember in Pain Grows Up in season 4,
yes.
there were several instances where you're like, what is happening?
Sexy grandma.
This go round, he mentioned his affinity for breast milk as a baby.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't say, but I don't drink it anymore. He just told her she didn't have to have it in the fridge every time he came to visit. He didn't say like, but I don't drink that anymore. He said, but that doesn't mean you have to have it in the fridge every time I come to visit. Why couldn't we say that more definitively?
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. Later in the episode, he told her he wanted to return to the womb. On its own, that line was funny, and actually I think it'd be really funny for social media, and I don't think people should be surprised if they see it later on our social.
Oh, wonderful.
But with their relationship, it made my skin prickle. He wants to return inside his mother.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
I never
put that
need to
under
hear
cringy.
you say that phrase again.
Uh-oh. Yeah, sorry about that.
Uh-oh.
Sorry about that. Anyway, cringy.
I see how you feel now.
And now I have a cringy moment.
So, my next one I'm calling obnoxious/diet cringy. So we meet Mark in episode 3, A Toe in the Water. This is the first guy Julia has dated since Reese.
Oh, sure.
It just felt like they wrote him as one big, long gay stereotype, all to serve like this very underwhelming payoff that, no, folks, just kidding. He's super straight. He's the straightest man that's ever existed. See what we did there?
Yeah. We totally tricked you.
Yeah. You got us.
Oh, man. Yeah, I had forgotten about that episode. Good call. There was an entire bit in episode 3 between Dwayne Dauber and Anthony that read uncomfortable with 2024 lenses. He's trying to find like a common line between the two of them. Dwayne is, even though, Anthony's black, but they have things in common. So there's this one line in particular that included the words, "If anyone tells me black guys are lazy." And just like when you start something like that, you just know it's going to be uncomfortable.
Oh my God, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
Block that out.
It's uncomfy. And to your point earlier, like we've definitely met Southern men like this. So it's not unfair that he would have said that. And it wasn't like the most racist thing ever.
I do remember that. Yeah.
But it is definitely a little cringy. Mm-hmm. Do you have any more obnoxious or cringy moments?
I have one final that I'm calling obnoxious and cringy, and that is Julia not listening to Anthony and going to the protest at the mall and kind of like running him over.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, episode 18, A Scene from a Mall. We'll talk more about that one when we get there, but that definitely struck some kind of weird chord with me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There were also in episode 16 a couple of uncomfortable names that Bernice called Anthony in that episode. And they very much said like Bernice was in a mood that day. But she called him like Mandingo at one point, which I think we talked about a couple seasons ago. It's like really horrible. She also sang Black Man. So like if it had been another character, that would have been hard to watch. But knowing it's Bernice and knowing she's got this thing, but someone somewhere had to write those lines.
People also love the singing.
I like the song. I think the song is funny. Mm-hmm. Again, it's coming from Bernice.
Right. I don't think it gets written in 2024.
Correct.
And sometimes I think people, because there is such a conscious effort to not do things like that, I think people almost feel like they're being bad. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, and that's why, because I mean, I can't tell you how many times I see comments like, they don't make TV like they used to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. So. Yeah. All right. So then our last little bit here is the most socially or culturally. That's a really hard word for me to say. Socially.
Back to back, too.
Or culturally important or relevant plot. I think you touched on this maybe a little bit in your favorite episodes, but I wonder what you had in this category.
I have a tie.
Okay.
And it's going to touch on something that we're all touching. Don't worry. We're 18 feet away from each other. We are not touching. But I think it's a tie between the Anita Hill episode and the one where Anthony is arrested at the mall. Mm-hmm. So Anita Hill was such a pivotal moment in American history and one that comes up repeatedly in recent years with Me Too and the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings and the 30th anniversary of her testimony in 2021. Spoiler alert, we're going to do an extra sugar on this, but wow, you really see the seeds for today's discord being sown there. And then Anthony, and you've really already spoken so eloquently to this, but I'll just say that episode for me taps into the civil rights Groundhog Day of it all. Mm-hmm. And it rightly criticizes racial profiling for one thing, but perhaps more importantly, Anthony opens up to Julia about those mental gymnastics that he has to do. And again, like I said, you've already spoken to that beautifully. So it also hints around what makes us a good ally and advocate as Julia shows us what to do and also what not to do.
That's a good point.
And I don't think that was the intention at the time.
Yeah.
But being able to see that through 2024, I think kind of reminds us that it's really easy to like walk into a situation, not truly understand, wanting to understand, caring, but not listening. And I think just for me, that's a struggle in daily life in general, whoever that other person is. I think sometimes like, because you want to be helpful, but sometimes the best thing you can do is shut up. I'm speaking to myself on that. Just be quiet, Selena.
Just here.
Yes. How about you?
Exact same. I mean, again, this goes to my point from the beginning about shenanigans. Like, this was such a light season on like social issues. Those were the two main episodes. I will say, the Clarence and Anita episode was not my favorite. And actually, the first time I watched it, I thought it was going to be the worst episode I had this season. There's like this meta Joan Crawford, Betty Davis thing happening, which is just like, it's an LBT device we've talked about before. It is not my favorite.
You know what I think happened?
What's that?
I think that was the episode. And I think Anita Hill happened. And I think they jammed it in there.
I could see that. That makes sense. It felt, so you said jammed. I was going to use the word bloated for this episode. There is just bam, bam, bam that happens throughout the episode. So it wasn't my favorite execution necessarily, but for all the reasons you just said, it was very important. And then I will say the montage of media coverage that they put together at the end of the episode. Oh my God, were those clips from 2024? Because they looked like things that could be on TV today. Like the same conversation re-happening over and over again is equal parts infuriating and also mind-blowing in some sort of way.
Amen.
So I agree with that.
Well, believe it or not, we've come around to a rating and a rating scale. Do you have one, Nikki? Because I really struggle for a rating scale.
So I did not come up with a rating scale, but I adapted my general reaction to the season into a rating scale.
Oh, wonderful.
So my overall sort of rating of the season was Much Ado About Nothing. And so I'm reframing it as I gave it 4 Much Ado About Nothings. So I said it's the first season we're watching that it doesn't feel like, but that's not true. I think we maybe last season started to get into this, but like I watched this entire season not feeling like I was watching a show from the 80s. Like the 90s feels, maybe that says something about me that the 90s feels current, but it feels like, it didn't feel like I was watching something super duper old. So I like that. That speaks to my 4. And I think Much Ado About Nothing, like I just genuinely don't understand all the hate on this season. After watching it, I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah, I agree.
What about you?
I gave it a 3.25 out of 5. And as we were talking, unwanted birthday strippers, that is just for the first one, but there's not really something, although you did a great job there. I couldn't think of anything that was like all encompassing.
Yeah.
That like was dirty. And that's what I really like.
That's really what you go for.
Yeah.
Now you've spoiled it
I
for
shouldn't say
everybody
dirty
that's
either.
what you're thinking of. Double entendre sort of stuff.
Yeah, like just something a little
edgy.
risque.
A little
Something,
That's Selena. That's Atlanta, Selena.
That's Atlanta, Selena. I'm like, nobody knows what that means. That's okay.
They will.
We do. You will know. No. So I think on the whole, it was better than average with some high highs, low lows, which we'll explore as we go on. But I am inclined to be right there with you. I just don't know, except for the fact that I think people were really like upset in the moment. Maybe we're taking our 91 down the road.
Yeah.
How would we rate it compared to previous seasons?
So did you think about this like an actual number rating or just a general reaction?
Just a general reaction.
Yeah, okay. Same thing I've already said. Like, it might be up there in terms of like a favorite season for me. I told Selena before we started recording, like I was verging on excited about coming back to talk about some of these episodes. Like, it gets
don't take the whole shine off for people.
Well, I was gonna say, like when we do the in-depth episode, some of the episodes are super fun to talk about. Either they're like really dramatic and it's a lot to really dive into and process, or they're shenanigansy and it's just fun to chat about. But the 24 episodes is a lot, and you sort of get
just
to this point. Feels very grindy. But this is a season where being able to look at it on the whole, like I just didn't really. I liked it, and I was getting excited about being able to talk about some of it. I know we lost a Suzanne and a Charlene. We gained a Bernice in a really major way. I didn't find Allison as utterly repulsive as apparently everyone else in the Designing Women Facebook group does. I think she's a fun foil to Julia, and I know you specifically mentioned Anthony earlier. I think she's kind of a fun little challenge for Julia. And I don't know that she was intended as a carbon copy of Suzanne. To your point, like they took some of those components and then ratcheted it up in a slightly different way, which may or may not have worked, definitely at different parts. The delivery is really different, though, so it feels to me like they stand alone. And then I think Carlene leans heavy into the parts of Charlene that they just never quite fully landed on. Like, we were always sort of like, is Charlene meant to be dumb? We have an answer to that with Carlene. We're there.
Lord.
I feel like we got our answer, so there was some resolution there.
I regained my composure. Okay, so the way I see it is it depends on the season. Early seasons, I'd rate them about the same. But now that we're talking, I feel like even that's not fair. I probably rate it ahead of early seasons, with the exception of a few really gem episodes. But unpopular opinion maybe, because I think Designing Women really struggled in those first seasons. Yeah. Seasons 4 and 5. Those for me still win, hands down. But I don't know. I'm with you. I enjoyed it. It was a good time.
It's a good time.
That's what we're here for.
That's all we want.
Until I have extra sugar, and then everyone will pay.
Oxygen will leave the room.
Oh, just wait till we get to that Anita Hill episode.
I know. I've been waiting. I imagine you're like...
I was like angry every day.
I bet. It's crazy. So for our next episode, we're going to do the thing we said we were going to do, which is dive into a character. This will be Mary Jo first. So we'll have 7 episodes across the season. We'll have our main episode. This one will be on Monday about Designing Women. Then we'll have Extra Sugar on Thursday. This week's Extra Sugar is just us being crazy and just off the cuff, sharing about life lately.
Yeah, we only had 3-4 note exchanges to figure out where we were landing. And I just think, like, when we are reaching that peak spontaneity, I mean...
That's wacky for us.
It really is.
That's wacky. So come back next week to see... to hear us, I guess, dive into Mary Jo. In the meantime, you guys know the drill. You can follow along and engage. What are you laughing at?
Just dive into Mary Jo.
I don't know. I'm looking at this now and realizing I didn't update it, so I'm trying to make it make sense on the fly. Go with me, Selena. Okay. Dive into the Mary Jo pool.
We're doing
Anyhow, Instagram and Facebook at Sweet Tea and TV. We're on TikTok at Sweet Tea TV Pod. We're on YouTube, Sweet Tea TV 7371, or just search Sweet Tea and TV. Our email address is sweetteatvpod@gmail.com. And thank you to anyone who ever sends us an email there, because it is such a delightful little perk when I open that box and there's something other than headlines from whatever Buzzsprout that I follow for podcast best practice. I'm like,
that sounds so sad.
Can I just get some fun mail? You know, like you go to the mailbox and you just get bills and political flyers. I just want fun mail. So thank you to everyone who has sent us emails. And then our website is www.sweetteatv.com. And on that website, you can find ways to support the show. On the Support Us page, you can also do like the low tech stuff about just like talking to your family and friends. And then as you're listening to this episode, if you want to rate or review us, a good rating or review, it really helps people find us.
Yeah, don't knock us off. I'm sorry, I have to say, please don't rate us 4 stars because you think we're not covering 6 and 7. Because guess what, my friend? We are covering 6 and 7. And also, that's just like a weird life decision.
The stars really help people find us.
There's 2 things you need to understand about America that are really crappy, okay? These are not the crappiest things. Just go with me on this. The first thing is people are getting paid based on stars, not us. Nikki and I pay to do this, but hear me out. If you are going to rate someone and you care about them, do not give them an honest evaluation. Give them 5 stars or their pay will get docked. I know many people who go through this. And the second thing that you need to know, I forgot because I am 39 and I am a tired old lady. Oh, tip culture. You now tip on everything. It doesn't matter if the person did anything or not. You're tipping them 30%. It doesn't make sense, but we just do it because this is America. I'm done.
Thank you, Selena. Thank you for that soapbox. And what an ideal time going into political season for you to share some of that. I think we're going to talk about some of that in our extra sugar. Yeah, make your voice heard. I will say, if you have feedback, seriously, send us an email. Like if it's something that we can change or something you're just curious, like, are you guys going to cover season 6 or 7?
The 4 stars just made me laugh. I really am mad about tipping culture these days. Yeah. People, pay your people.
Just pay it.
Pay. We're going to tip, but also pay your people.
Right.
It's a little obnoxious that we're expected to pay for your employees because you don't want to.
Amen to that. Yeah, that's a good point.
We'll do it.
So let's do an extra sugar on tipping culture because I feel like there's things to say there.
I have thoughts.
So this Thursday, though, first, we're going to do an extra sugar where we're just going to catch up because we literally have not sat across the table from each other since, was it May? April. So it's been a hot minute. We've had a whole summer. We've talked to each other in brief text messages and on conference calls.
I'm like, I talk to you 7 hours every
But
week.
we're due for an actual, honest to goodness catch up. So let's do that. How about?
Sounds good. And you know what that means?
What does it mean, Selena?
It means that I can remember things from April.
April?
And it means we're going to see you around the bend.